Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome back. It is episode number 6 of the Newcastle United career mode. Starting stage of stuff with Manchester City in the last 16 of the FA Cup. Of course, the holders beating Manchester United 2-1 in the final last season. Technically, as this year is kind of following on from the last season we just saw in real life. So taking on the holders, who will be going for that treble once again. And heading into today's episode, guys, I can always talk about mental health, and the reason why is very simple. I don't know whether you guys have seen it. If you haven't, Dele Alli has done an interview with Gary Neville on Gary's podcast, The Overlap, and it is really, really harrowing. But it does shed some light on the, I guess, saga of what has been Dele Alli's kind of spiral in terms of his career over the past few years. You don't have to go back that long ago to when Dele Alli was one of the biggest prospects in, I'm going to be honest here, world football. Like he was really that good. I mean, there were rumours that Real Madrid were going to try and buy him for a monstrous fee. He seemed to have the world at his feet. Starting in World Cup semi-finals for England, he started Champions League final for Spurs. He had a tremendous career, it seemed, ahead of him. And then, of course, he kind of fell off. He sort of fell out of the rotation at Spurs. Many questions as to why. Some citing a lack of adaptability, if you will. Some believing that he simply wasn't trying hard enough. And some possibly thinking maybe there was something going on behind the scenes. In the end, of course, he was let go to Everton in that very strangely structured deal under Frank Lampard, where I don't think Everton paid a fee, did they? It was all just over instalments, I believe. Or did they pay a small upfront fee and then the rest was based on clauses that he might hit for Everton based on league appearance, I think, was how the deal was mainly structured. And then, of course, at Everton, he didn't really get going. People thought that this is his sort of last chance, if you will, to prove that he's still got it. He can still hit some really big heights, and he just never really got going at Everton at all. I mean, you've heard the phrase "hit the ground running." Well, Dele Alli barely even touched the ground. He didn't really get going at Everton. So then he was loaned out to Besiktas for this past season, and of course, very early on, there was that clip of him being substituted off like half an hour into a game against like a lower league Turkish side in the cup, and there were rumours that Besiktas were going to terminate the loan early, and everyone started saying, he's lost it, he's too lazy, he doesn't care. People started speculating he was a drug user or an alcoholic, or quite simply he had given up and just did not care about football anymore. And didn't care about his career anymore. Of course, Dele Alli, was interviewed or chatted to by Jose Mourinho in the Spurs documentary for Amazon, where Mourinho, of course, has that famous clip where everyone retweets it, everyone posts it on their story, everyone, talks about that clip as being the thing where it's like, oh, see, Mourinho knew, when Jose, of course, famously says, yesterday I was 20, and I think if you do not reach the level, you will regret, basically, is what he was saying today. Yeah, basically, what people interpreted from that comment, from that chat with Mourinho, was that Dele Alli was clearly not working hard enough in training, and Mourinho spotted it, and Mourinho called him out for it. What's revealed in that podcast interview with Gary Neville is that actually, a week later, Jose Mourinho called him to apologise because he'd seen him train and realised that actually he was putting in the effort. Certain things just weren't falling into place, which, quite frankly happens. That happens. Sometimes we can be going really, really hard and really doing our best. And from the outside, it might not look like it. And the reason why is because the results aren't there. Doesn't mean you're not trying. And Dele Alli kind of clarifies that. But of course, that clip of Mourinho apologising to Ali and giving him the props for training hard wasn't included in the documentary. And that's because the documentaries are for entertainment and they sensationalise things. Of course they do, because this is the entertainment business. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story is, of course, the phrase we all remember. So, Dele Alli had so much criticism, so much criticism, and despite that, he remained silent, and yet the tabloids would follow him around like crazy, because there is nothing that the British media in our country, for those that aren't from the UK, for those that aren't from England in particular, but for those that aren't from England and the UK, there is nothing that our tabloids like more than to build up a young person, male or female, a young star, and then break them down. And it infuriates me. It absolutely infuriates me. There is nothing more than our tabloids love to do than to build up a star as the next big thing. I mean, how many names could we throw out right now? Seriously, but how many names could we throw out where the media have bigged them up to some kind of superhero wonder kid status? And I'm not just talking about sports people, I'm talking about entertainers, people of all walks of life. And then they'll just break them down, tear them down, and publicly shame them as much as we can. David Beckham's effigy is something which I will never forget, even though I was so young at the time. I was 5 at the time. And I remember, a few years later, looking it up and reading about it and thinking, God, did this actually happen? I was too young to understand it back then. But, of course, a few years later, I couldn't believe it. Like, I literally could not believe it. Anyway, so Ali is no exception, unfortunately. He was the golden boy. He was the young wonder kid from my neck of the woods, actually, from around where I came from. Milton Keynes. I'm locally to Milton Keynes. I grew up in a small town about 12, 13 miles away. And he was the local boy with the modest background who had come through to lead now for Spurs and England, and it seemed as though he was going to have a career that I guess you could probably liken to, I guess we're talking about like modern times, like nowadays, you could probably liken to Jude Bellingham, for example, probably a good example there, going on from a Football League side and then going elsewhere and then becoming a star. Bellingham seems to have gone the way that people thought that Dele Alli would have done, if that makes sense. But of course it didn't work out that way, and despite all the media hounding, despite all the media criticism, Ali remained silent for the most part, even when he was pictured, at parties and pictured not basically in the gym 9 to 5 every single day. It was basically just it was just a shaming of Dele Alli constantly. There was nothing good to read about Dele Alli for the past year or two, really. Dele Alli did an interview with Gary Neville on his podcast, The Overlap, and I'll leave a link to it in the description. I'm not going to spoil it for you and talk about exactly what he said, but it was harrowing, absolutely harrowing. And he talks about the trauma he had as a child. And I remember a few years ago, I read a story about Dele Alli, because whilst he was from my area, a few years younger than me, I obviously don't know who he is or anything like that. I know someone who works for Milton Keynes Dons, and he's of course spent time with Dele Alli. He's a media person for Milton Keynes Dons. He spent time with Dele Alli, and he was there as a humble kid, really, really nice kid. But I obviously knew nothing about Dele Alli. I knew nothing about his background. When I read about his mother and the fact he had a bit of an estranged relationship with his mother, I thought, there's clearly something there. Like, there's clearly something there about his childhood. But of course, I can't speculate on that because I know very little about it, basically next to nothing. But when he talked about his childhood in the episode with Gary Neville, it really did make me very close to shedding a tear. I'm someone who really, I can't cry like a lot of men. I have a problem with crying. I wish I didn't, but I do. Whenever I feel myself about to tear up, I stop. I know many men are like me in that case. We find a way to stop, don't we? We find a trigger that basically forces us to stop feeling that emotion which is about to overflow. But it did make me very, very emotional hearing Ali talk about his childhood. It was harrowing. Some of the anecdotes and some of the things he talked about were absolutely harrowing, and it just goes to show with the childhood he had and the start he had, it's actually not much of a surprise, unfortunately, things then started to take a toll, particularly after when Mourinho came in and he lost his place in the team. And, obviously you could credit that to many different things. Of course you can credit that to many different things, but really Ali didn't really feel as though he had the support he needed, not just from Mourinho, of course, but just in general, just in general. It was sad. It was sad to hear it. And I think it just kind of goes to show you that, like I said, I'm not gonna spoil it for you. I do think you should listen to the interview or watch it, whether you want to listen to it as a podcast or watch the actual interview. You can watch it if you like with Gary and Dele. It's very emotional bits in there, I must say, when the two of them are clearly tearing up. It's a tough watch. It's a tough listen, but I really do recommend it. But it just goes to show you there that, like, behind the scenes, so many things can be going on, and we have no idea, or we might have possibly an inclination, or maybe a thought, maybe a theory, but we don't know. We really, really don't know. We have no idea what goes on behind the scenes. Absolutely no idea. And, to bring it back to myself, I mean, sometimes I get criticism. Listen, I'm a YouTuber. Everyone's going to get criticism. If you're a YouTuber, you're going to get criticism no matter what. I get criticism sometimes. For things, and sometimes you want to tell the story. Like, sometimes you want to say, well, actually, here's what you should need to know, but you don't, and you kind of bite your tongue, if you will, think, oh, if only they knew. And I'm not just saying this from me. I mean for literally everyone. You don't need to be a YouTuber or a footballer or an entertainer or a politician or even someone that's in the media or even someone that's known. You don't need to be any of these things. You can just be a quote-unquote normal person in a quote-unquote normal life with a quote-unquote normal 9-to-5 job. We're all going through battles. We're all going through things, and we all have traumas. We all have things from our childhood. We all have things that we've gone through, and we all have things that we still go through. And the outside world will know a fraction of those things, if any of them at all. And I guess really I kind of just wanted to say, like, today, I know that kind of like be kind saying gets banded about and, kind of made fun of a little bit here and there. Be kind, guys. It seems like such a, buzzword or a buzz phrase to say, kind of giving yourself that faux sort of, oh, look at me, look at how good I am because I put a, hashtag be kind in my bio on social media. But it is true, we do need more kindness. Like, we do need more kindness, more empathy, more understanding. And I hope that, because sports fans in particular, and particularly football fans as well, can be very critical of athletes and football stars, be it for their team or for rival teams, or just for any footballer really. I hope we can understand that they are real people too, and no amount of money is going to erase the trauma Dele Alli had in his childhood. No amount of money, like absolutely no amount of money whatsoever can erase some of that trauma. It's there, he'll live with it until he takes his last breath on this earth. And I think that being kind, being empathetic, these are the things we need to practice more of. I do feel as though, I don't know why, I do feel as though social media over the past few years has become a lot more hostile. And maybe it is just me, I don't know, but I do feel like it has. I do feel like for some reason it's become a lot more... Yeah, just a lot more hostile, a lot more critical, a lot more judgmental, and I don't really know why it is. I remember starting YouTube, and yes, of course, even back in the early days, you got a little bit of criticism. There's nothing like it is now, like, literally nothing like it is now. Some social media people get their dogs abused for practically nothing, and it's just unbelievable, And I do feel as though, so there's this new app called Threads, right? Threads, and everyone's jumping on it. I can't have a Threads account because you need an Instagram account. I've not got one, but if I do get an Instagram account, then I'm sure I'll get one. But from my friends that have got it, they do seem to say that it appears to be like a nicer version of Twitter, and that's kind of what we need. I don't know why, but Twitter in particular, but just in general social media, has become a lot more hostile, a lot more critical, a lot more judgmental. Someone directed me to a website recently because their friend, who is kind of high profile in the media, like she runs a podcast which is quite big actually. I won't say who it is, but she runs a big podcast. She's a female. She runs a big podcast, and there's a website. It's like a forum, like a public forum, where people have been like posting a thread about her and just talking shit, like absolutely, like, basically just really awful, nasty, negative things about her. And I was thinking, my God, that's awful. Why her? And then I looked into the website, and it's literally about practically anyone that's got a platform. I'm glad to know that I'm not on there, or so I think. But it's crazy, absolutely crazy. And the website, the forum is called Tattle Life. And it's basically just kind of like a gossip forum where people just not totally criticise everyone, but most of the comments are critical and negative, and I suppose some are abusive and horrible, absolutely horrible. Perhaps there are some justifications for some moments and for some people, but not for all, surely. And it's just unbelievable. Like, it's absolutely unbelievable. But this, to me, feels like the way the internet has kind of been going over the past few years. It's become so critical, so harsh, so judgmental. And I guess I kind of just wanted to say, like, let's make sure we try and keep this away from the way we interact in real life, for sure. But also, let's try and be better, like, online. Let's try and be more supportive. Let's try and be more understanding. Let's try and be more empathetic. Let's try and wait a little bit more, instead of being so quick to judge people, to criticise people, but also, I think, as well, to condemn. And the word, or the phrase, I should say, cancel culture. I've talked about my feelings on this before. Cancel culture is not, like, no, like, I'm sorry, but no, never. Like, seriously, we need to. I'm not saying that we give people a pass to, do horrible things or whatever, but, like, literally cancelling someone, destroying someone's career for a tweet they put out when they were 13 or something, that is not the way to go, like, as far as I'm concerned, anyway. But no matter what, anyway, going away from that, no matter what, we do need to be more understanding, more empathetic. There are so many people that are struggling with mental health and don't feel as though they can talk about it, and especially men, and especially heterosexual men as well, really, really struggle with mental health. And we constantly see this kind of, I don't know, downplaying, if you will, of the ability for men to be able to speak up. And that's why I give tremendous credit for Dele Alli for talking about his trauma, opening up about his childhood, and expressing why his career has kind of gone on a downward spiral. And I guess my only hope is that, well, first of all, you guys, if you haven't seen it or watched it or listened to it, then please do so. But also, people take the lesson from that story and say, do you know what? Maybe we should be a little bit more understanding. And instead of being so quick to condemn, just allow people the space to talk when they're ready to talk, and maybe then we'll be able to understand a little bit more. Thank you for watching. Much love to you all, sincerely. If you do need help, I do recommend reaching out to anyone that can offer that support. Believe me, therapy did wonders for me, as did antidepressants. But yeah, thank you for watching. Much love. I'll leave a link to the Dele Alli interview in the description down below, and I'll see you for the next episode of Newcastle United Career Mode, where I'll try and be more positive and upbeat very soon.